The galaxy was old, older than most species could understand. And in all that time, it had collected many stories. Some stories were about great wars. Some were about love and loss. And some stories were about things so strange and terrible that nobody knew if they were true or not. The story of humans was the strangest of all. Dury first heard it when she was very young. Her grandmother had held her close on a cold night and whispered words that sounded like secrets. She spoke of a species that lived on a small blue world at the edge of everything. They were not strong like the Gorm. They were not fast like the Kef. They had no claws or wings or armor on their skin. But they had something else. Something dangerous. They had a fire inside them that never went out. Her grandmother said the humans burned so bright that they burned themselves. They fought wars among themselves until nothing was left. Now their world was silent, and the galaxy had put up warnings around it. Do not go there. Do not look for them. Do not wake the fire. Dury had believed that story for most of her life. She had no reason not to believe it. Everyone said the same thing. Humans were dead. Humans were a myth. Humans were nothing but a scary story to tell children. But Dury had always been curious. Too curious, her teacher said. She asked questions that had no answers. She looked for things that could not be found. And 5 years ago, she had started looking for proof that humans were real. Now she stood in the great hall of the Galactic Council, and she finally had that proof. The hall was full of beings from every corner of the galaxy. Tall and short, thin and wide, covered in scales or feathers or stone. They had all come because something terrible was happening. Something that scared even the bravest among them. The devouring swarm had returned. Ambassador Yuna stood at the center of the room. She was old and tired, and her silver skin had lost its shine long ago. She had been talking for a long time, telling the council things they already knew, but did not want to hear. 12 star systems had fallen. Billions of lives had been lost. The coalition fleet was broken, scattered across space like leaves in the wind. And the swarm kept coming. It always kept coming. It did not stop to rest. It did not slow down to think. It only moved forward, eating everything in its path. The council members argued with each other. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to run. Some wanted to hide and hope the swarm would pass them by. But deep down, everyone knew the truth. There was nothing they could do. The swarm was too big, too strong, too hungry. Then Elder Tova spoke. He was the oldest being in the room, so old that nobody remembered when he was born. His body was bent and weak, but his mind was still sharp. When he talked, everyone listened. There is one hope left, he said. His voice was like dry paper rustling. The humans. The room exploded with noise. People shouted and screamed. Some laughed like it was a joke. Others looked angry, like Tova had insulted them. The humans are dead. Someone yelled. They are just a story. Another voice added, we cannot base our survival on fairy tales. Dury felt her heart beating fast. This was the moment she had waited for. She had spent years gathering evidence. Radio signals from the Forbidden Zone. Energy readings that should not exist. Patterns in the static that sounded almost like music. She raised her hand and shouted above the noise. I have proof. The room went quiet. Everyone turned to look at the young navigator with the wild eyes and messy hair. She was nobody important. Just a scout who flew small ships through dangerous space. But right now, she had everyone's attention. I have proof, she said again, quieter this time. They are alive. She walked to the center of the room and connected her device to the display system. A map appeared, showing a small section of space marked in red. The Forbidden Zone. The place where no ship had gone for 3,000 years. I sent a probe past the boundary. Dury explained. I know it was against the rules. I know I could be punished. But I had to know the truth. She pressed a button. Sound filled the hall. Strange, beautiful sound. Instruments playing together in ways that nobody had ever heard. A voice singing words that nobody could understand, but everyone could feel. It was sad and happy at the same time, like a sunset or a goodbye or a memory of something lost. When the sound stopped, nobody moved. Ambassador Yuna broke the silence. What is that? Music, Dury said. Human music. The probe picked up thousands of signals like this. Radio waves. Communication bursts. Energy signatures from ships and stations. The Forbidden Zone is not empty. It is full of life. Elder Tova stood up slowly. His old bones cracked, but his eyes were bright. Then we must go to them, he said. We must ask for their help. And if the stories are true? Someone asked. If they really do have fire in their hearts? What if we wake something we cannot control? Tova looked at the map. At the red zone that everyone feared. At the small blue dot hidden somewhere inside it. Then we will burn, he said simply. But we are already burning. The swarm will consume us all. At least this way, we have a chance. The council voted that night. One ship, one crew, one mission to find the humans. Dury volunteered before anyone else could speak. 3 days later, she flew her small ship toward the Forbidden Zone. Ancient warnings floated past her window, carved into rocks the size of mountains. The words were old, but clear. Here sleeps the fire. Do not wake it. Dury took a deep breath and flew forward anyway. Behind her, a dying galaxy waited for hope. Ahead of her, a legend waited to become real. She had no idea that she was about to change everything. Dury expected to find ruins. She expected broken ships and dead stations floating in empty space. She expected the silence of a species that had destroyed itself. Long ago, she found something very different. The moment her ship crossed the boundary, alarms started screaming. Her sensors showed more activity than she had ever seen in her life. Thousands of objects moving through space. Satellites watching from every angle. Stations bigger than cities hanging in the darkness. Ships flying in perfect patterns, like birds moving together through the sky. This was not a graveyard. This was a civilization. And it was very much alive. Dury tried to turn her ship around. She needed to go back. She needed to tell the council. But before she could move, her controls stopped working. Every light on her console went dark. Her ship drifted forward, pulled by something she could not see. A voice came through her speakers. It spoke in a language she did not know, but it sounded calm, almost friendly, like someone greeting a guest at their door. Dury raised her hands to show she was not a threat. She knew it was pointless. Whoever had captured her could destroy her ship in a heartbeat. But she did it anyway, because she did not know what else to do. Time passed. Minutes became hours. Dury sat in the darkness and waited. Finally, she saw lights approaching. A small ship moved toward her, careful and slow. It connected to her airlock with a soft click. She heard footsteps. The door to her bridge slid open, and Dury saw her first human. The woman was shorter than Dury expected. She had black hair pulled back from her face and dark eyes that seemed to notice everything. She wore a simple uniform with silver markings on the shoulders. Her hands were empty. No weapons. No tools. Just a small device that blinked with gentle light. The woman spoke. Her voice was steady and warm. The device blinked, and suddenly Dury could understand the words. I am Captain Hana Park of the Terran Scout Corps. You are in restricted space. Please tell me why you are here. Dory opened her mouth to give the speech she had prepared. The careful words about diplomacy and cooperation. The formal request for assistance. But when she tried to speak, something else came out instead. Please, help us. Everyone is dying. The swarm is eating everything. We have tried to fight, but we cannot stop them. Billions of people are dead. Billions more will die. We did not know where else to go. We did not know who else to ask. Please, please help us. The words poured out like water from a broken dam. Dory felt tears on her face, but she did not care. She had carried this fear for so long. The fear that her entire galaxy would be consumed. The fear that everyone she loved would be eaten by monsters. And now, standing in front of a legend, she could not hold it back anymore. Captain Hana listened without interrupting. Her expression did not change. But something moved behind her eyes. Something soft and sad. Tell me everything, she said. So Dory did. She told Hana about the swarm and how it moved through space like a plague. She told her about the fallen systems and the destroyed fleets. She told her about the Council's desperation and the ancient stories and the small hope that had brought her here. When she finished, Hana was quiet for a long moment. Come with me, she finally said. There is someone you need to meet. Hana led Dory to the small ship and flew her through the human system. Dory pressed her face against the window like a child, staring at everything they passed. The stations were enormous. The ships were beautiful, and the planet they approached was the most amazing thing she had ever seen. Earth, blue and green and wrapped in white clouds. The birthplace of humanity. The world from all the stories. They landed on a station orbiting the planet. Hana led Dory through hallways filled with humans. They came in all shapes and sizes and colors. Some smiled at Dory as she passed. Others looked curious, but not afraid. Nobody ran away. Nobody screamed. They entered a large room full of lights and screens. Maps covered every wall, showing stars that Dory did not recognize. At the center stood a man with gray hair and a face that looked like it was carved from stone. Everyone in the room moved around him carefully, like he was the most important person in the world. Admiral, Hana said. This is the visitor I told you about. She has a message from the Coalition. Admiral Taiho Lee looked at Dory. His eyes were hard and sharp, but not cruel. They were the eyes of someone who had seen terrible things and kept going anyway. Speak, he said. Dory told her story again. The Admiral listened without moving. When she finished, he turned to a young woman standing nearby. Lieutenant Jisoo. Check her information. Lieutenant Jisoo Kwan worked quickly, connecting Dory's data to their systems. Images appeared on the screens. Dead worlds. Burning ships. The black tide of the swarm sweeping across the galaxy. The room became very quiet. Admiral Taiho watched the images for a long time. His face showed no emotion. But Dory noticed his hands slowly closing into fists. How long have they been fighting alone? He asked. 2 of your years, Dory said. Maybe longer. And nobody helped them? Nobody knew. By the time we understood what was happening, it was too late. The Admiral turned to the window. Outside, Earth hung in the darkness like a blue jewel. He stared at it for a long moment. 3,000 years ago, he said quietly, we chose to hide ourselves. We watched the galaxy grow. We hoped other species would learn to protect each other. We hoped we would not be needed. He turned back to face the room. His eyes burned with something that Dory had never seen before. Something fierce and bright and unstoppable. We were wrong. People are dying because we did nothing. Children are being eaten because we were afraid to act. His voice grew stronger. No more. We're done hiding. He looked at Lieutenant Jisoo. Wake the fleets. All of them. Every ship we have. Every weapon. Every soldier. Jisu's eyes went wide. Sir, that has never been done before. Then it will be done now. The Admiral turned to Duri one last time. Go back to your council. Tell them the legends were true. Tell them humanity is coming. He paused. And tell them we do not plan to lose. The Korath system was dying, and Ambassador Yuna could do nothing but watch. She stood on the observation deck of the last Coalition carrier and looked down at the planet below. Korath Prime had been beautiful once. Green forests that stretched for thousands of miles. Blue oceans filled with life. Cities that glowed at night like scattered stars. It had been home to 3 billion people who loved and worked and dreamed. Now it was covered in darkness. The swarm crawled across its surface like black water spreading over a floor. From space, Yuna could see the shapes moving. Millions of them. Billions. Eating everything they touched. The Coalition fleet had 40 ships left. Just 40, against an enemy that filled the sky. They had fought for 3 days without rest. They had watched friends die. They had done everything they could. It was not enough. It was never enough. Ambassador, an officer said. His voice was shaking. The swarm is moving toward the evacuation points. The shelters will be breached within 2 hours. 2 hours. That was all the time the civilians had left. Mothers holding their children. Old people who had lived through wars and famines. Young couples who had just started their lives together. All of them hiding underground while monsters scratched at the walls above. Yuna closed her eyes. She had sent a message to the council days ago. Help is coming, she had told them. The humans are real, and they are coming to save us. But days had passed, and the sky remained empty. Maybe Duri had been wrong. Maybe the humans were just a story after all. Ambassador, the officer said again. His voice sounded strange. Something is happening. Yuna opened her eyes. The space in front of them was breaking apart. That it started as a tiny point of light, like a star being born in the darkness. Then the light grew larger and larger. Energy crackled around it like lightning. The fabric of space itself seemed to tear open, creating a hole that led somewhere else. Then the ships came through. The first ship was so big that Yuna could not believe her eyes. It was longer than her entire fleet put together. Weapons covered every surface, glowing with strange light. It moved through the portal like a sea creature rising from deep water. Behind it came more. Dozens, hundreds, thousands. Ships of every size poured through the opening in a flood that seemed endless. They spread across the sky like a second galaxy being born. Every channel on Yuna's ship went silent. Nobody could speak. They could only watch as the impossible happened in front of them. A voice came through the communication system. It was calm and steady, speaking in words that everyone could understand. This is Admiral Taiho Lee of the Terran United Fleet. We have heard your call for help. We have seen how much you have suffered. The time for sleeping is over. The voice paused. When it continued, it was harder, colder. To the devouring swarm, you have one chance to leave this system. If you stay, you will be destroyed. All of you. This is not a threat. This is a fact. For a long moment, nothing moved. The swarm ships hung in space, millions of them, surrounding the planet like a dark cloud. They had never retreated before. They did not know how to retreat. They only knew how to consume. The swarm attacked. Every bioship in the system turned toward the human fleet and charged. It was the largest attack anyone had ever seen. A wave of death that should have destroyed everything in its path. The human fleet opened fire. Yuna had seen weapons before. She had watched battles and wars. She thought she understood what power looked like. She was wrong. White beams of light cut through swarm ships like they were made of smoke. Projectiles moved so fast they were invisible, punching holes through creatures the size of mountains. Something that looked like a small sunshot from a human carrier and exploded in the middle of the swarm formation. Everything within 1,000 kilometers simply vanished. The swarm died in numbers that Yuna could not count. Thousands fell in seconds, then tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands. They kept coming, and the humans kept killing them. It was not a battle. It was a storm of fire, and the swarm was being swept away. 6 hours later, it was finished. The sky around Korath Prime was full of broken ships and floating debris. The black tide that had covered the planet was gone, burned away by weapons that fell from above. The swarm had lost millions of ships. The humans had lost none. Yuna's hands were shaking so badly she had to hold onto the railing. "They won," someone whispered. "In 6 hours. They destroyed what we could not stop in 2 years." But Yuna was not looking at the debris. She was looking at the planet below. Human ships were landing. Not warships. Transport vessels. They touched down near the shelters where civilians were hiding. Doors opened, and soldiers in strange armor stepped out. They were not there to fight. They were there to help. Yun. I watched a young human marine lift a wounded child from the rubble. He was a young man with kind eyes, and he held the child like she was the most precious thing in the universe. Other Marines handed out food and water. Others set up medical equipment. Others simply stood guard, protecting the survivors from any danger that might remain. One of the Marines looked up at a camera drone that was recording everything. He smiled and gave a small wave. It was such a simple gesture. Such a human gesture. Yuna felt tears running down her face. The legends had been wrong. So wrong. She had expected monsters. Everyone had expected monsters. The story said humans were dangerous, violent, destructive. The fire that would burn everything it touched. But these were not monsters. These were guardians, protectors. People who had traveled across the galaxy not to conquer or destroy, but to help strangers they had never met. Down on the planet, Sergeant Minho Beak carried the wounded child toward a medical tent. She was small and scared, and she held onto his armor like it was the only safe thing in the world. "It is okay," he said softly. "You are safe now. Nobody will hurt you anymore." The child looked up at him with huge, frightened eyes. "Are you a god?" she asked. Minho smiled. It was a tired smile, worn and sad but real. "No," he said. "I am just a person. But I am here to help. And I am not leaving until everyone is safe." Above them, the human fleet stood watch over Korath Prime. They had won the first battle. But everyone knew it was just the beginning. Somewhere in the darkness, the rest of the swarm waited. Billions of them. And humanity was just getting started. The war room on the flagship Eternal Dawn was silent. Maps and numbers floated in the air, showing things that nobody wanted to see. Admiral Tai-Ho Lee stood in the center of the room and stared at the display. Most of the galaxy was marked in blue, showing friendly space. Some areas were green, showing human territory. But a huge section was red. The Outer Dark, home of the swarm. The red area was so large that it made everything else look small. "Show me the numbers again," Tai-Ho said. Lieutenant Jisoo Kwan touched a button. The display changed. Red dots appeared across the Outer Dark. So many dots that they blended together into a solid wall of color. "Our scouts count at least 1 billion swarm ships," Jisoo said. Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking slightly. "The force we destroyed at Korath was less than 1% of their total strength." 1%. They had fought the biggest battle in human history. They had used weapons that could crack moons. They had won without losing a single ship. and it was only 1%. Taeho closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, his face was calm but hard. What about the central consciousness? What have we learned? Dr. Yoonji Shin stepped forward. She was a small woman with tired eyes and messy hair. She had not slept in weeks. She had spent every moment studying the swarm, trying to understand it, trying to find a weakness. She had found something. The swarm is not what we thought, she said. Her voice was quiet but steady. It is not one species. It is many species, all forced together. She pulled up a new image. It showed a cell from a swarm creature, magnified thousands of times. Inside the cell were tiny shapes, twisted and wrong. Every creature the swarm has eaten is still inside it, Yoonji explained. Not completely dead. Not completely gone. They are trapped, controlled. They have no freedom, no choice. But they are still aware. They have been aware for millions of years, screaming inside a prison they cannot escape. The room went very quiet. Captain Hannah Park was the first to speak. You were saying the swarm is made of victims? Yes, every ship, every soldier, every piece of the hive mind contains the remains of species it has consumed. They feel everything. They see everything. But they cannot stop it. Taeho felt something heavy settle in his chest. He had fought many enemies in his long career. He had never felt sorry for any of them. But this was different. This was not just an enemy. This was a prison made of stolen lives. Can we free them? He asked. Yoonji nodded slowly. Maybe. The swarm is controlled by a central consciousness. One mind that connects everything. If we destroy it, the connection breaks. The hive mind falls apart. And the victims? Some might survive. Some might not. But they would be free. After millions of years, they would finally be free. Taeho looked at the map again. The central consciousness was hidden deep in the outer dark, protected by billions of ships. Getting there would be almost impossible, unless someone cleared the path. We need a distraction, he said quietly. Something big enough to draw the swarm's attention while our main fleet reaches the target. Hana understood immediately. Her face went pale, but she did not look away. You are talking about a sacrifice, she said. A force that goes in knowing they will not come out. I'm talking about a choice. The hardest choice anyone can make. Silence filled the room. Everyone looked at each other. Everyone looked away. Then Hannah stepped forward. I will do it, she said. My battle group. 17 ships. 4,000 people. We will enter the Grave Nebula and make ourselves the brightest target in the galaxy. The swarm will come for us. And while they are busy with us, you destroy the heart. Taeho looked at her for a long time. He had known Hannah since she was young. He had watched her grow into one of the finest officers in the fleet. He had always believed she would lead humanity one day. Now he was asking her to die. Are you certain? He asked. His voice was rough. Someone has to hold the door, sir. Hannah smiled, but her eyes were wet. We have been hiding for 3,000 years. I think we have hidden long enough. That night, the fleet prepared for the final battle. And everyone said their goodbyes. Lieutenant Jisoo found Hana standing alone on the observation deck, looking at the stars. I asked to be transferred to your group, Jisoo said. Request denied. Captain, please. No. Hana turned to face her. You are needed here. The Admiral trusts you. The fleet needs you. Her voice softened. I need you to survive. Someone has to remember what we did. Someone has to tell the story. Jisoo wanted to argue. She wanted to scream. But she saw the look in Hana's eyes and understood. Some paths only went one way. I will remember, Jisoo whispered. I promise I will remember. In another part of the ship, Sergeant Minho Beak sat in his small room and wrote a letter by hand. It felt old-fashioned, putting words on paper. But it felt right. Dear Soyin, he wrote, I'm sorry I will not make it home for your birthday. I know I promised. I always promise, and I always break that promise. But this time is different. This time, I have a good reason. I met a little girl today. She was scared and alone, and she reminded me of you. The way she laughed. The way she held my hand like she never wanted to let go. Tomorrow I am going somewhere dangerous. I might not come back, but I want you to know why I'm going. I'm going because there are more children like her out there. Children who need someone to protect them. Children who deserve a chance to grow up. That is what being a soldier means to me. Not fighting, not killing, protecting. Making sure that the people we love get to keep living, even when we cannot. I love you, little sister. Be brave. Be kind. And never forget that somewhere out there, your brother is looking out for you. Always. Minho, he folded the letter and wrote his sister's name on the outside. Then he put on his armor, picked up his weapon, and walked toward the transport bay. The Grave Nebula was waiting. And so was the end of everything he knew. The Grave Nebula was the darkest place in the galaxy. Thick clouds of dust and gas blocked all light. Ships that went in almost never came out. The swarm had made it their home because nothing could find them there. But Captain Hannah Park was not trying to hide. She was trying to be found. Her fleet of 17 ships flew into the darkness with every beacon turned on. Every signal broadcasting at full power. Every light shining as bright as possible. They were screaming into the void, telling every swarm creature in the galaxy exactly where they were. The swarm answered. They came from everywhere, rising out of the dust clouds like nightmares taking shape. First hundreds, then thousands, then millions. More swarm ships than anyone had ever seen in one place. All drawn to the 17 small human vessels. Like hungry animals following a scent, Hannah stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Morning Star, and watched them coming. All ships, she said calmly. Fire at will. The battle began. Human weapons tore into the approaching wave. Railguns sent metal flying at impossible speeds. Missiles exploded in flowers of fire. Energy beams cut through the darkness. The swarm died by the thousands, but they kept coming. Always more. Always closer. The first human ship fell after 3 hours. The destroyer Silver Wind lost power and drifted helplessly. Within minutes, swarm creatures covered it like insects on a body. The ship broke apart. No one escaped. By hour 6. Only 12 ships remained. By hour 10. 8 ships. By hour 15. 4 ships. Hannah watched her fleet disappear around her. She knew every captain who died. She knew their families. She knew their dreams. Now she watched their ships go dark, one after another, like lights being turned off. But she did not retreat. Every hour she survived was another hour for the main fleet to reach the target. Every minute she held on was another minute closer to victory. Captain. A weak signal came through the static. This is Admiral Taiho. We have reached the central consciousness. We are preparing to fire. A long pause. You have done enough, Hannah. Please retreat if you can. Hannah looked around her bridge. Her crew was exhausted. Some were wounded. Some were crying. But none of them moved toward the escape pods. None of them asked to leave. Negative, Admiral, Hannah replied. We still have their attention. If we run now, they might turn back. You need every second we can give you. Silence on the other end. Then the Admiral's voice came back, rough and broken. It has been an honor, Captain Park. The honor was mine, sir. Now finish this? End it for good. She cut the connection and faced her crew. You heard the Admiral. They are almost there. We just need to hold a little longer." She paused. "I know this is not fair. I know I'm asking for everything. But right now, somewhere out there, billions of people are counting on us. Children are counting on us. And I am not going to let them down." Her first officer stood up straighter. "What are your orders, Captain?" Hannah smiled. "All power to weapons. Everything we have left. And someone play some music. If this is our last stand, let us make it one worth remembering." The morning star charged forward into the swarm, far away, deep in the outer dark. Admiral Taiho stared at something that should not exist. The central consciousness was not a creature. It was a planet. A living planet, made of billions of consumed species, all merged together into a single screaming thing. It pulsed with terrible life. Signals flowed out from it, controlling every swarm creature in the galaxy, and it was aware of them. Taiho could feel it, like cold fingers pressing against his mind. It was scared. For the first time in millions of years, it felt fear. "All ships," Taiho commanded. "Fire everything. Hold nothing back." The human fleet attacked. Every weapon they had struck the living planet at once. Nuclear fire. Energy beams hotter than stars. Projectiles that could shatter moons. The central consciousness screamed, a psychic cry that echoed through space itself, and then it died. The effect was instant and total. Across the galaxy, billions of swarm ships stopped moving. Some went still. Some exploded. Some simply fell apart as the connection that held them together disappeared forever. The red wall on every sensor display went dark. The swarm was finished, but Taiho did not celebrate. He was looking at the Grave Nebula, where 17 brave ships had given everything. "Get me a signal to Captain Park," he ordered. Now. Static. Nothing but static. Rescue ships arrived at the nebula 2 hours later. They found wreckage everywhere. 15 ships destroyed completely. Nothing left but scattered pieces. A 16th ship drifted alone, its hull cracked open, its crew dead at their post dot, and the 17th ship, the Morning Star, barely holding together. Holes covered its surface. Power flickered weakly. But somehow, against all odds, there were survivors. 7 people out of 4,000. Sergeant Minho Beek was one of them. They found him in a cargo bay, surrounded by escape pods. He had spent his final conscious moments loading wounded civilians into the pods and launching them to safety. When the rescue teams reached him, he was barely alive, still holding a rescue beacon in his broken hand. Captain Hannah Park was not among the survivors. They found her on the bridge, still in her captain's chair, her hand still on the controls. She had flown her ship until the very end. 1 year later, a memorial stood on Korath Prime. It was a simple wall of black stone with names carved into it. Every human who died in what the galaxy now called the Liberation. 4,000 names from the Grave Nebula. 4,000 heroes who held the door dot representatives from 40 species attended the ceremony. Beings who had once thought humans were just myths now stood together. Honoring legends who had become real. Jury was there. She had received medals and honors, but she did not care about those. She only cared about the people who had answered her desperate call. Admiral Taiho was there. He looked older now, tired, but he stood straight and spoke clearly about duty and sacrifice and hope. Sergeant Minho was there. He walked with a cane now. The doctor said he would never fully heal. But he refused to miss this day. A young girl approached him. She was small, maybe 6 years old, with big curious eyes. She held a piece of paper in her hands. "Excuse me," she said shyly. "Are you the soldier who saved me?" Minho looked at her. He remembered. The scared child from Korath Prime. The little girl who had asked if he was a god. "Yes," he said softly. "I remember you." She held up her paper. It was a drawing. A human soldier with wings, standing between children and a wall of darkness. The soldier was smiling. "Is this what humans are?" she asked. Minho took the drawing with trembling hands. He thought about Hannah, who had flown into death so others could live. He thought about his friends who had stood beside him until the end. He thought about his sister, who would grow up in a safer galaxy because of what they had done. "No," he said. "We are not angels. We are not gods. We are just people. Regular people who decided that being strong means protecting those who cannot protect themselves." The girl tilted her head. "Is that why you came to help us?" Minho knelt down so he could look into her eyes. "Yes, that is exactly why." "And do you want to know something important?" She nodded. "You can be that kind of person too. Anyone can. You do not need wings or special powers. You just need to care about others. You just need to be brave enough to help when someone is in trouble." The girl smiled. It was a small smile, but it was bright. "I want to be like that," she said. "Then you already are." Above them, the stars shone in the darkness. Human ships patrolled the empty spaces, watching for danger. The swarm was gone forever. The galaxy was healing. And humanity, the legend that had slept for 3,000 years, was finally awake. They would never go back to sleep. Not while there were still people who needed help. Not while there was still darkness to fight. Not while there was still hope worth protecting. The fire in their hearts would never go out.